All right, so you ever been in one of those situations where it's just like really awkward? Like, for example, somebody has food in their teeth, or maybe they sat in some mud or pudding and it looks like they pooped their pants. Well, typically in those situations, there's usually three different types of people on how they respond. First, you have the person that just doesn't say anything at all. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Is something wrong?
Yeah, everything's all right.
Oh, okay. Then you have the person that, like, they don't care what they say and they're not afraid to tell you that you got something in your teeth. No?
Bro, look at your teeth.
What?
Hey, no, that's really gross.
What about
That's really gross.
What?
It's in your. It's like right. It's like.
Here?
Yeah, you got it. No, you didn't. What you been eating? What you been eating?
Just some salad.
I don't like that. That's the grossest thing I've probably ever seen.
And then there's the person that just does it right. They say it the right way, they're kind and they're nice about it, and they let you know, and ultimately you're pretty grateful for it.
Hey, how long you got some? You got some in your teeth. Yeah.
Where?
Right there. Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Left over from lunch. Hey, thanks for letting me know. That would have been embarrassing.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All right, but what about those situations where it's a little bit more serious than just some potential embarrassment? Like you are genuinely concerned about somebody because maybe they're making the wrong decisions and you don't know if you should say something or what to say. Like, how do you begin to handle that situation? Because that's a little bit more tricky. So let's talk about it. All right, so it's one thing to tell someone they have food on their face, but it's a completely different scenario if you're talking about a friend who maybe is going into a relationship that you maybe think is not the best for them, or confronting someone about a decision they're making that just aren't that great. Or what about speaking up about something that you know is going to get them in trouble? You see, situations like these, they're a little bit more tricky, and we want to help, like we really do want to help, but we're afraid. We don't know how they're going to respond. We don't know what they're going to think about us. But what if we could learn a way to have these difficult conversations that ended up bringing about something good? Well, if we remember what we talked about last week, we were talking about Paul and this idea of we want to be known for love. We want to be all about love. And so if love is the goal, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do when we're reaching out to our friends, then we can look back to something Paul said in his letter to Galatians. It says this in Galatians 6:1. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. See, Paul cared about the Galatians, and so when he told them this, he wanted them to understand that it's more than just having a conversation with somebody. We have to kind of go the extra mile with them and help them to get back on the right track with God. Now listen, it's also important to recognize what Paul didn't say in this scripture. First thing he didn't say was that you're personally responsible for your friends' decisions. Those are their decisions. All we can do is begin to help them. He also didn't say that you need to put yourself in a position that sets you up for failure. You can't control what other people are going to do, and you need to be smart about what you're doing. So it's important to seek wisdom in these situations. Go talk to somebody who is smarter than you or has other perspectives to help you know if this is a situation you should be getting involved with, period. See, the point is, according to Paul, with humility and gentleness, you and I can help people who are struggling with making poor decisions to put them back on the right path. Now, Paul continues to say in verse 2 to do this. He says, share each other's burdens, and in this way, obey the law of Christ. So how do we help? How do we help people get back on the right path? Well, we carry each other's burdens. So in the fitness world, there's this person that's known as the spotter. And the spotter is a person that stands behind somebody when they're working out to help them carry the weight when that person can't lift it completely. So for example, you may be sitting there doing your bench press and you're just pumping out reps, and all of a sudden you're getting to the end and your arms are just whipped and you just can't push up anymore. And what the spotter does is they're here to help you lift that weight up to put it back on the rack. Now, depending on how much strength is left in the person doing the weight will depend on how much the spotter needs to help. So sometimes you may only have to use a couple fingers and that's all you need to really just get the weight up. But there may be other times where that person, their arms are they're just dead. And so and that weight just drops to their chest and you're basically lifting all the weight up for them. And that is what God has called us to do to help other people. That's how we carry each other's burdens. You see, sometimes the most loving thing to do isn't always the easiest thing to do, but we owe it to each other to speak up when we know we need to say something to help somebody out. You see, as believers, we don't need to be just people who are pointing fingers and being self-righteous and saying, well, you're doing this and you're wrong. That's not what we're about. We're there to support them and to share the burdens with them, to be the spotters, to help them become where they need to be. Now, let's go back to the example earlier where we're talking about different types of people. Some of you aren't afraid to speak up at all. You will share your mind and you'll say whatever you need to say. Well, Paul slipped in these two words that I think are very important for you to hear. And he said, when we help people, we do it with gentleness and humility, right? We need to be gentle and humble in how we help people. We don't just rake them over the coals and say whatever we want and tear their feelings down, but we care about them and we say things in love. So when you're helping people out, probably the best question that you can ask yourself is, am I showing love in how I'm treating this person? In the way that I'm talking to them? In the way that I am acting around them? Am I showing love in the way I'm treating them? So if we're going to choose to be known for love, then when it comes to what you say and how you help others, remember this: let love be your filter. And here's what I mean by that. Everything that we say and we do needs to go through this filter of love. And I think when it comes to having difficult conversations with people, there's this 3-step process that we can kind of go through to see, one, if we should say anything at all, but 2, how we can make sure we're saying it in the right way. So the first thing is, let love be your filter for your involvement. All right, so before you go and say anything or do anything, think about, should I be saying anything at all? Is the best thing for me to do to help this person out is to get involved? Because if the answer is no, then you don't go any further. You don't say anything. But sometimes the best thing that you can do to love somebody is to get involved. But listen, this is very tricky. And so it's very wise for you to go seek counsel on this. Talk to somebody else and see if this is the right direction, because ultimately what you're doing is you're kind of having this gut check and you're making sure that your motives are right and your motives are pure and you're looking out for their best interest and not your own. So if you've determined that, yes, you do need to get involved, that is the most loving thing you can do for your friend, then the next step is to let love filter your words, right? We need to be very careful in how we choose our words, and we need to make sure we're filtering those through love. So a good question to ask yourself might be, how would I want somebody else to approach me with this? What would I want them to say to me? And if I'm thinking about their best interests, and if I'm looking at how can I help them with gentleness and humility and loving them the best I can, then I'm going to put everything I say through this filter of love so that I am making sure that they know that I'm not trying to attack them. I'm not trying to judge them. I'm not being a hater, but I genuinely care. And when we genuinely care about somebody and when we filter our words through love, people will know that we have their best interest at heart. So the last thing that you need to do, if you've filtered your involvement and you've filtered your words through love, the last thing we need to do is filter our actions and reactions through love. Because ultimately, if you're talking to somebody and they're making a lot of bad choices and they're doing things that they don't need to be doing, they probably need more than just a conversation to help them get back to where they need to go. They're going to need your help. This is where carrying burdens and sharing burdens comes in. And so the way that you treat them and the way that you act around them is how we filter our actions and reactions through love. So the question to ask yourself is, how would somebody need to treat me if I were going through this situation? What would I want somebody to do or to say? Or how do I know if I need to get somebody else involved because maybe this is a little bit bigger than what I can handle on my own? Do I need to seek professional help? If we start filtering things that way and we filter our actions and reactions and how we treat them through love, then we're a lot more likely to get them the help they need and for them to invite us into their lives to help them along this path so they don't feel like we're just trying to judge them or come in and take control. See, when we let love be our filter, we end up sharing the burdens with those that we love. Now imagine how our schools and our workplaces and our friendships and our family relationships will be different if there were more people filtering their involvement and their words and their actions through love. We would say things that were hard to one another, but not out of judgment or hate, but because we loved them. And we would keep people from regrets and mistakes and unnecessary heartbreaks and negative circumstances. And who knows, a filter of love might just change the direction of somebody's life for the better forever. So let's be people who let love be our filter so we can help those we love stay headed in the best direction for their lives.